Hello everyone, Savanh here. Welcome to our training. I am super excited to share with you this subject that's really near and dear to my heart. The subject is called the three circles of life. And as human beings, we tend to overcomplicate things. And I'm going to break it down so simple that life is really about these three things. And there's multiple categories that are underneath them, but really it's about these three things. So let's dive right into the training here. So life, what is life really all about? It's really about yourself, your work, your relationships. That's pretty much it. That is the three circles of life. We do not have to overcomplicate life at all, but we tend to. And when I go into this training, you realize, oh my gosh, it's really every single day. I just have to focus on these three areas of my life. And you can only do two things with the three circles of life. You can either balance them or integrate each circle, whether it's your work or your relationship or yourself, into your life. So it's either balancing it or integrating. And balancing it, and when I say balance, it's pretty hard to balance all three to be perfect. And what I mean by that is you can't really break all three down and say, hey, I'm going to spend 33.333% of my time on my work and 33.333% time on myself and on my relationship 33.333%. That's really hard. You can balance a pretty close, maybe 50% work and 40%, 30% work and 35 yourself and another 35 on your relationships. Something they're fairly close to each other, but not. I don't believe they're always going to be perfect. You're going to spend a few percentages here and a few percentages there, but fairly close. Or you can learn how to integrate them. Okay, integrate them. So we're going to cover what that means in a little bit. So, and then balancing or integration really depends on this. It really depends on the stage of life, your current stage. So let's look at this model as an example, right? So if this is your three circles of life and you spent, let's say, 75% of your time on your work, 75%, and you spent 15% of the time on yourself, right? And then 10% of your time on your relationship. Well, is this necessarily wrong? It is to a point, right? So, but if let's assume that your stage of life is you're a married businessman like I was, okay? With children, with living parents, and I spent a lot of my time, this is my circle of life. Well, if somebody like myself continued his life this way, what would be the potential problems if I exist, continuing down this path? Well, it causes a lot of unhappiness, a lot of issues in the marriage, which ultimately happened to me. I was, neglecting because I spent a lot of time on my business, a lot of time growing my business, scaling my business. And so I neglected the other two. I neglected myself. I got, I gained weight. I wasn't emotionally fit. I wasn't spiritually fit. I wasn't physically fit. So I neglected myself, and I definitely neglected my relationships. My relationship with my wife. I didn't have a lot of time for my parents, my brothers, my sisters, my children. Younger children, right? They're, one is 6 years old now, one is 4. But I neglected most of my time with them in the toddler ages and things like that, because I was so focused on my career. Now, that if I continue staying down that way, it's going to cause a lot of problems. As you can see, I needed to really figure out how to integrate and balance them, obviously a lot more. And when I did this, I really justified it. I said, I'm a provider. I protect the family. I provide for the family. So it's okay for me to spend my time at work. So I kind of justified it so that basically making myself feel good that by neglecting these two other circles of my life, it's okay because I'm a provider. Well, that's not necessarily true. We can literally find, and I have found, and I'm living proof of it, that I went from this model to a much more integrated, more balanced model as well. They're not perfect, but I do spend a lot of my time on my work, myself, and my relationship really more close, very closely balanced. They're within 5% of each other. But this model works for, let's say, if you're a single person, you don't have kids, you don't have a girlfriend, you just maybe just got out of college and you're really building your career. Well, this makes a ton of sense, right, to do. And this is a good example of this model works for that type of an individual. So that's why I say it's not necessarily wrong, but it could be better than this. So for example, even if you were somebody who just graduated college and you're really focused on your career, but even at that, if you kept going on that rate, you may have issues. Why? Because you're spending 75% of your time on your work and only 15% of the time on yourself. Forget the relationship, just yourself. So maybe you want to integrate or a little balance it out a little bit. Maybe 50% of your time, your work, and 30 or 35% on yourself. And then I believe that we're creatures. We're made to love, socialize, and you still need a relationship. So you gotta grow that as well. But maybe a little bit more on your work, but not too extreme like the example that I showed here. This is just doesn't matter if you're single or you're married man, married woman. This is just if you continue for a little bit, for a while, as you start your career, that might be something that is okay. But if you continue long term, you will have problems because you will neglect the other two circles of your life. So integration, what do I mean by integration? Well, this is what I mean. Let's talk about balance real quick. Balance. So can you get them all 33.33% perfect? No, I don't highly recommend. It's really tough to do, to juggle all three. Get them close. One at 35%, one at 30, one at another one at 35 to make it 100%. Pretty close, but not really super, super perfect, right? I don't think anybody can really get it perfect. And if you do, it's really, really tough to manage for the rest of your life. So I really like the integration model where integration allows you to be present. You're integrating all three circles in your life at the current moment of what you're doing. So for example, I go to work, right? If I go to work, then my blue circle, well, I'm going to spend 75%, 80% of my time on work because I'm working, right? I'm focused. I'm super hyper focused on it. And then I may spend 20% of my time on myself, and then the remaining 5% on my relationships at that time. So I am literally focused and present on my work, for example, right? And I'm not spending a lot of time on my relationship right now, right? So I'm only spending 5% of my time on. So you learn to integrate. So based on where you're at. But then if you're home, so I'm going to use an example of home. So if you're home though, you're not working today, right now, you just got home. Well, you might want to spend a lot more time on yourself, right? You might spend a lot more time on yourself here, right? You might spend 60% of the time on yourself, and then 30% of your time on your relationships, and then 10% on your work, or none at all. So you just increase your circle of where you need to be present at. Or you might want to spend 6% of your time on your relationships, your wife, your children, and then exercise or grow yourself or get spiritually grounded or emotionally fit. Because I believe that every single person needs to be fit in spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental as well. So maybe you swap it. Maybe you spend 60% of the time on relationships and 30% on yourself and 10% on the work, or none at all. But that's what I mean by integration. So, but if you really, the reason why I'm so, this is so near and dear to my heart, because this was mine for a very, very long time, and I justified it by saying this is okay for me to do because I am a provider for my family. And, there was still something tugging at me, right? So when I was even at home working, spending 75% of my time on work, I felt guilty because I wasn't spending time with my family because I knew I was neglecting, and myself, my health, I was neglecting the other two areas of my circle. And then when I would focus on the other two areas of my circle, I was guilty because I wasn't spending enough time on my work. So just learn how to balance them out. Also incorporate the integration model of each circle. But really, if you wanted to make life really, really simple, life is really all about the three circles of life: yourself, your relationship, your work. And that is it. And if you learn how to control and be present when you're doing in that moment, life is going to be great. Because if you're spending time, you're supposed to be at home spending time with your wife and children, and you're picking up the phone instead of doing emails and doing work while you're with them, well, you're still spending, even though you're physically there, you're not present, you're not emotionally there. So really, you're spending more time at work anyways while you're there. So that's what I mean by integrating them. But just to kind of simplify it, though, life is really all about the 3 circles of life. And I hope this training has helped you understand. Put down on a piece of paper. What I would do is look at your current situation, draw these circles out. Where are you spending most of your time right now? So if you're spending a lot of your time at work, and if you have no relationship and you're unhealthy, for example, you might want to consider saying, man, I'm spending way too much on my career, and I've let my physical, my emotional, my spiritual, my mental go, and I don't have a relationship. Maybe I need to incorporate, integrate, and maybe balance this out a little bit more. And then, so write down where you're currently at, and then write down what you desire, what your desired situation. So your current situation tells you, be honest where you're at, and draw another piece of paper. Where would you like to be at? If you want to build a relationship, grow a relationship, maybe you want to integrate that in more in your life, and have that circle be just a little bit bigger, where you spend more time, maybe 45% of your time there, and then 30% of your time, let's say, on yourself, and then another 25% of your time on your work. So makes it a complete 100%. So that is my suggestion. Write down where you're at. First, you needed to understand them. That's why we did this. Write down where your current situation is at, and then also draw down your desired situation. That will help you really be a little bit more balanced, more grounded, and you can learn how to integrate between the 3 circles of life. So again, this is Savanh. I hope you guys enjoyed the training. If you want to learn more, guys, look, we also want to ask you, if you like this training, please hit the like button. Please comment specifically. Comment what you took away from this, how it will impact your life, and most importantly, any improvement. We're always looking for improvements, any improvements that you believe that we need, that we can, suggestions. We would love to, because we're always looking to improve and over-deliver and make sure that we add a ton of value to you. And then subscribe. So we're going to be uploading 2 to 3 videos every single week for you to learn from. And if you want to know that when we upload a new video all the time, you'll be able alerted if you subscribe to us. And then most importantly, if you want to learn more about us, we have a link below there. Click on the website for some gifts, some free additional training, just by clicking the link or typing the link below. So again, guys, thank you very much. Have a blessed day. I hope you enjoyed the training.